Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make sense. Hi everyone. My chat with Alaister is one of those ones where the conversation virtually has a life of its own. We are both quite passionate people, and I think that comes through nicely in our chat. The only drawback is that in our excitement, we tend to talk over each other. I hope you don't find that too distracting. This was one of those interviews where I felt a nice rush of excitement because I got to know Alaister so much better. He's really a unique and interesting person. I hope you enjoy getting to know him too. This podcast is supported by the First Layer, the 12-step workbook on working through the 12 steps in any addiction in 21 sessions. There's also a 24-day step coaching and counseling program available based on the First Layer. For more information in this regard, go to www.freddy.org.za and click through from the notices at the right of the homepage. Sit back and enjoy. Alaister, welcome to Meet Me in the Field.
Hi there, Freddie. Thank you so much for having me this afternoon. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I must say, I'm really quite grateful that you've invited me. Thank you.
Thank you. And this on a Saturday afternoon. You did a race this morning.
Yes, I've got a company called Bespoke Nutrition, and we were just doing a water point.
Okay.
So yeah, we had pretty much formulated a recovery drink because it was towards the end of the race. Yeah, but often Saturday mornings I like getting out and trying to letting loose that little bit of competitive side of me.
So you're a runner.
I run, I surf, I bike, I do all sorts of things.
Okay, so you're very, very active.
On occasion.
You look like somebody that's very active. You look like somebody who trains a lot.
Put it this way, when I say on occasion, it's obviously with having a business that's in its infancy at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose actually using that analogy is actually quite good. If you could imagine that my business squawks all day, all night, and needs attention.
Your business baby doesn't sleep.
It's not the worst analogy in the world. So yeah, I'm just finding that I'm not getting a lot of time to train. So I usually am training on the weekends.
Okay.
So I would call it maintenance
training
as opposed to actually having fixed goals.
Yes.
Like I'm going to do a half Ironman in June or July.
What I find very funny is people who don't exercise, let's say road running.
Yes.
They don't run a lot, but they go and do road races.
Mm.
And that is their form of exercise. And for me, in my head, I've been a competitive hurdler.
Yes.
So you go and exercise and then you go and run the race.
I'm exactly like you.
So I could never understand these people who run the races for exercise. It doesn't make sense.
I'm totally, I have to say, Freddie, I'm totally with you. I mean, the weirdest thing is that I ran my first marathon in, I think it was September last year. And
Your first ever?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And the thing was that I really hadn't done what I'd considered enough training.
Sufficient.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me to feel really confident and comfortable that I was going to go in and smash it. I didn't do a bad time, and my recovery was, look, when I'd finished, my muscles were a bit sore, and I was a little stiff the next day, but the day afterwards I was running, and I ran another half marathon pretty much 4 days later.
Okay.
And the weirdest thing was that I was watching and obviously having a look on social media, a lot of people's comments, and people really had a tough race, that particular race.
Oh, wow.
Like really tough.
Yeah.
With people that are not training properly for these races, I would think it's just a recipe for injury.
Yeah. But also I've got a friend who would say, come run the X with me.
Yes.
The race. And would say, but I'm not fit enough. She said, no, but it's okay, we'll walk. But then I'm not running the race. Then I'm walking.
I'm totally
so
with
if I
you.
say to myself, I'm going to do a 10K.
Yes.
And if I have to walk, then I didn't do a 10K. Then I did 9K X and the rest I walked. And then I feel as if I failed.
I'm totally with you.
Totally with you. I wish I could change that mindset. It's like, if you, whatever, go out.
Listen, if we want to go for a walk, let's go for a stroll along the beach. Right? Let's not go and do it at a race. For the simple reason is that with me, when I'm racing, race means run fast.
Go out there and
actually go and compete.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Even if it's only with yourself.
I mean, I totally get that with yourself. Yeah. One of the big things that I love about race day is that sort of 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning wake up. And you've got the little butterflies in your tummy, and got to get through. And there's everybody else standing at the start, and everybody's smiling, and there's that. I wouldn't quite call it. It's tension. It kind of feels in a way almost like sexual tension, but it's not quite. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a very anticipatory energy.
Yes.
I love it as well. Yeah. And I love the camaraderie during a race. That's
absolutely
so lovely. I only did 2 half marathons, but as I said earlier, I used to be a hurdler in my young days, and that I hated. The tension was too much.
Yes.
I could not deal with anxiety about it. I mean, at South African championships and stuff like that, I would throw up between the heats and the finals from absolute tension. I looked like shit. It was just... and the problem was that I added too much value to my performance.
Right.
I didn't do it because I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I did it because
it was expected.
Okay. My performance in this race defines me, and that was nonsense.
Got it.
I wish I had the knowledge I had now. Then but I would do so different.
But it's funny. Yeah. I mentioned to you the other day that I'd been involved with life coaching for ages, and my life coach is one of her biggest things that she wants to really launch, and at some particular point I'd like to get behind it financially and make this happen. Is actually having life coaching for kids from the age of probably 9 through to 18.
Yeah.
And actually show people how to deal with these life issues. Because if we have a look at pretty much, and I know it's a bit of a generalization because we've got some people that we know that started doing things a little later on in life, but by and large, a lot of the things that need to be unpacked in things are usually from that sort of 7, 8, 9 through to the sort of 16 age group. And the weirdest thing is that if I knew back then these particular types of skills on how to actually deal with things, instead of me going off and going and doing A, B, and C, I would have had the tools to actually handle things and actually, right? And I look back and I think to myself, goodness, how much more of a almost a productive life, if you could call it that, I possibly could have led if I'd actually had those tools.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I think that should be mandatory in every single schooling system.
Yeah. It's like the school didn't prep me for life.
No, it didn't.
Frankly, I think it was a 12-year waste of time and just making me very anxious about being inferior. That's what I left with.
You know, this is and I'm so glad that we're talking about this. I mean, what I said the other evening, which was so different between, let's call it an institution like Western Province Prep and a government school. A government school turns around and goes, we are going to take you, which is a nice rounded human form, and we're going to hammer you into a little box because that's what we've decided this is.
Yes.
Instead of turning around and going, right, we recognize that you are who you are. How do we stimulate this particular individual into growing into the biggest, bestest, and strongest type of person that you possibly can have? And it's chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
One is empowering, and the other literally sits with inferiority complexes. I'm sorry.
Because you don't fit in that hole.
But how many people actually do?
No, hardly ever.
Well, the weirdest thing is that, I mean, I went to a very, very beautiful high school also a government school, but they really went out of their way to try and allow for this sort of individuality, if you could call it that. But there was still that regime, if you
rigidity.
Yes. And the weirdest thing is that what often happens is that you look around at your peers and you go, oh, you know what? He just seems to totally have it together. Wow, he's in the first team rugby, but and he's this, and he's academic. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day. Seriously. And the thing is that this particular institution churns out a particular stamp of boy.
Yep.
They are very easily discernible. And he was saying to me that he is living the white picket fence. And that's what he's always wanted to do. But when you actually listen to him, there was never the picture that you've got of what that person really was going through or how they had actually fitted in is actually totally false. Because that particular person also has their own fears, their own insecurities, their own things. And I'm just, at the end of the day, I think if you can show people some pretty small little life hacks, I mean, goodness, if you're going in for social studies, or if you're going in for any number of some of these other classes, right? Go and spend an hour a week learning how to actually live a productive life.
Absolutely.
Why not?
I'm so with you on that one.
Yeah.
You sound as if you've thought about this life thing quite a lot.
Massively.
So, what do you believe in? What is it that keeps Alaister going?
Yeah, Freddie, it's a funny sort of. It's not a funny
question.
It's a broad question. It's a broad question. Yeah, it's a broad question. And it's certainly not funny. So I suppose the easiest way for me to kind of sort of explain where I'm at and how I got there was to actually just sort of take you through the sort of process.
Take me to the journey. This is what this is all about.
Okay, cool. I was born into a pretty staunch Seventh-day Adventist family, but I was always taught and encouraged to question. And my biggest mantra or thing in life is question everything and then re-question it again.
That's weird. That's not garden variety. How old are you now, if I may ask?
I'm 43.
43. Yeah, that's not really our age, right?
No.
So you're far more enlightened in that respect than most of your peers, I reckon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh no, absolutely.
Well, good for you.
So the weird thing is that I come from a long line of English conservatives, but challenge everything.
Okay.
Until you are 100% satisfied with what it is.
Okay.
And don't let anybody tell you anything different. Okay? So
God, we couldn't have grown up differently.
Yes. But you know the funny thing is Wet Pups is motto. And it was one of the reasons that my father wanted me to go to Wet Pups. And I'd been enrolled when I was born.
Okay.
Is stand for what you know to be right.
Cool.
So if you don't know something and you don't know the reasoning behind why you stand for something, then you're on pretty shaky ground.
Yeah.
So my grandfather was massive on respect. He was a runner-up Golden Gloves boxing champion.
Oh, wow.
And his whole thing was, Alaister, question it. But if you've got an opinion on something, be very aware of the fact that we are going to question that. And you need to have researched it, and it needs to be
informed.
Yes. You can't just turn around and go, oh, I think Johnny Depp's a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
Why? Oh, because he looks cool.
Yeah.
Right? No, it's because he's running 6 different NGOs and this. And, do you know what I mean? Have reasoning for your opinions. And they would encourage me to debate. So I've been debating. Funnily enough, a friend of my mom's actually turned around to me the other day and she told me something. Apparently I was 2 or 3 and I used to stand on these old fruit boxes. You know those fruit crates?
Yeah.
And I used to deliver speeches.
I'm a man.
Yeah. So ever since I was a kid, I was very comfortable in chatting to adults and interacting with people. So to kind of come back to almost the religious side of things, because I think there's a massive difference between religiousness and spirituality.
No.
Absolutely. One I think is human perversion, and the other is not. So by the time I was 11, I turned around to my mom and I said to her, I'm not coming to church anymore. And she wanted to know why. And I had a list. I'd made my whole argument.
Your argument was set out.
Yes. These are the points of hypocrisy that I've found. These are the things that I don't agree with. And I don't see how it's logical that if this is what somebody's saying, and this is what's happening, and this is what you're supposed to be doing, none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of my biggest things was, and unfortunately it's one of the tenets of Christianity, is Jesus died for your sins. And you go, okay, cool. But anywhere in the whole universe does it say that one person's sacrifice is going to blot out everything else? Show me, prove it to me. How?
Yeah.
So, for example, even at that stage, I had many sort of really deep kind of questions.
Okay. So it just did not make sense.
It didn't make any logical sense to me in any shape, form or size. So she turned around to me and she said, look, by the time you're 13, you are allowed to choose your thing. You've got to come to church for the next 2 years. And it was weird because I used to go off and go drink and go and get stoned with a friend of mine. So it wasn't really terribly conducive. But by the time that I was 13 or so, I had started looking into Islam.
Okay.
The reality is that there are many exceptionally good points to this particular religion, but there's a heck of a lot that there was just absolutely no ways that I could get my head around the stuff. And pretty much at about 14, I came across a book by a chap by the name of John Gribben, called In Search of Schrodinger's Cat.
In search of what?
Schrodinger's cat.
Never heard of it.
Okay, so Erwin Schrödinger was a physicist, and he came up with a particular, let's call it, problem. He was very involved with quantum physics, and this basically turns around, and the experiment is, if you've got a 50% chance, basically you've got a cat in a box. You've got a 50% chance that if you press this button over here, an isotope will be released and the cat will die, and or there's a perfectly even chance.
Yeah.
Now the thing is that he turns around and goes, until you actually observe it, that cat is neither alive nor dead. We then started looking into quantum physics, and I started getting very interested in science, but not sort of normal science. Let's call it slightly more abstract science. And this is part and parcel of my spiritual journey. I then started looking into a number of other sort of fields, particularly dealing with energies and things like that. Literally up until, I suppose I was just kind of coasting around. Up until I was 32 when I met my life coach, and she introduced me to yoga and Buddhism.
Okay.
And I'd done a fair bit of looking at Buddhism previously, but I hadn't really looked at it with an open mind, if you could call it that. Yeah. And so I started spending quite a bit of time. And the thing is, for me, Buddhism makes perfect logical sense. They can break everything down, and so for me it ticks all my particular boxes.
Cool.
And then I kind of, a couple of years ago, I started interacting in our communities, if you could call it that. So in our fellowships. And
how long ago was that?
Goodness, that must be about 2.5 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's short.
Yeah. I'm a newbie, really.
It feels much longer than that.
No.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, about 2.5 years ago. And the whole thing was looking at this whole higher power story. And when I first came in, when I saw all of the GOD stuff, yeah, but luckily somebody turned around to me very, very quickly. Not mentioning any names, but I turned around and said, "Listen, it's good orderly direction."
Yeah. I had that chat as well. Thank God for that.
Yes, right. And then somebody else turned around, probably I think it was like a week later, and said, "I've taken my higher power as these two magpies that sit on a telephone wall outside or in the tree outside his house, and they talk to each other."
Sweet.
And I went suddenly, okay, cool. Right now, and I slowly started to cotton on to a thing. So for me, when I first came in, I needed a model. I needed to understand how this whole thing worked.
Kind of scientifically make sense of this.
Yes, I needed to. Otherwise, there was no ways that I was going to invest my time and energy into it.
That must have been difficult.
Not really.
Not?
No, not at all. Because I had so much
knowledge
but all sorts of bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So literally what I did was I just cobbled everything together that kind of made sense.
Yeah.
So for example, this is how I kind of see it, is you have, everything is energy. So you've got lower forms of energy and higher forms of energy.
Yeah.
And the reality is that we can only perceive a very, very, very small percentage of the spectrum.
Okay.
For example.
As humans?
As humans.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
It's amazing how behind we are in terms of the animal kingdom with so many things. we think we're so special.
We do, but this is where things start becoming quite interesting. When you start having a look at the new physics that is coming out, string theory pretty much kind of bombed towards the middle of the 90s. And in essence, what guys are looking to do is they're looking to get a general sort of united theory of everything. They're trying to marry relativity and the quantum, because the two don't quite work with each other. So there's a particular chap by the name of Jack Safati, and he's come up with some really beautiful maths. It's phenomenal stuff, but it's so simple.
Has somebody ever told you you're weird?
Yes, a lot. And do you know what the funny thing is that I've known it all my life, and we used to have like t-shirts. We used to have our own little t-shirt company. So for example, way back in the day, we would have like DEA. We used to have these cool DEA jackets, but it really used to look like DEA jackets. Instead of like Drug Enforcement Agency, Drug Experiment Agent. That's me, baby. Right? And we used to have t-shirts that used to say addict on it.
Oh my word.
No, really. I was never terribly shy about my issues.
At school, were you the rebel, or were you the compliant type who did well academically and did well in sport? Or how did you fit in as a teenager in the mold where the government school tried to bash you into?
Okay, so the weirdest thing is that I was all of it.
Teachers must have hated you.
Teachers hated me and teachers
because you're
loved me.
questioning everything, so you're kind of a rebel.
Oh, yeah.
Yet you're doing well and you're doing what must be done, so they don't have a reason to hate you.
I wasn't doing what was needed to be done. So the thing was,
because you didn't need to do it. You were okay without it.
Yeah, no, seriously, academics wasn't an issue. Remember way back in the day, we always used to turn around and go, just write your name on the paper and hand it in.
Yeah.
I did that for maths and matric. I got between 0 and 19 marks for both exams combined. I handed it in. I was that much of a kind of oak.
So how the hell did you pass matric?
Oh, because I did well in everything else.
You can see what type of person I was, a compliant one. The shock on my face. How could you do that?
So, for example, absolute rebel. Teachers loved me because they could see potential, massive potential, but highly frustrated with me for the simple reason is that I just was not interested in anything that you had to say, at all, because I know better than you.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing is that in certain things I did, But if I look back now and go, all of these people were just trying to help and enrich me. And all I was, and it's funny because after we were chatting the other evening, I tried to figure out why was it? Why did I do all of those particular things? And it was a defense mechanism, because there was just a scared little 6-year-old who had been hurt and was frightened and didn't want to have that happen to him again.
Yeah.
So everything else all stemmed off that little thing, and it was.
So it sounds as if the 6-year-old built the wall.
Oh, the 6-year-old built
not
a wall. He built citadels. Right? Believe me, I read military strategy. I know how, and I would keep everybody out. Everybody.
It's amazing. It's amazing how we reacted differently. My 6-year-old went the other route.
Okay.
Just love me. I'll do anything. I'll do anything in my power to be okay for you to love me.
Yeah.
The complete opposite.
Yeah.
And it's the same,
but
possibly
the
the
same
same
route.
route from the same route.
Yeah, but the same route.
Yeah.
And two totally diametrically opposed kind of
Freaky.
things.
Freaky. Yeah. Sorry, I guess I interrupted you about the school. So back to the energy.
Okay, so Sarfati's theories, basically it's been called post-quantum theory.
Okay.
For me, it works. A, it's simple. B, when you start delving down into the actual mathematics, you get the golden ratio. You get all sorts of bits of things, which indicate to me that if it's embedded in this maths and it's embedded there and it's starting to resonate, if you could call it that.
Yes.
So one of his particular things is that the future affects us in the present just exactly the same way as the past affects us. Okay? A little bit of something to get your head around, but
I can think of one reason, if I may throw a theory out there. If I think how we live in fear of what might happen, that influences as much as the shit that has happened.
1000% correct. Okay, cool. So we're on the same page here. Right. Then, when you have a look at this maths, it shows that every single thing in the universe is all consciousness based.
Yeah.
Okay? If there isn't an observer, it doesn't exist.
Okay.
Physically, it isn't there. It is not. It doesn't exist. And to take it one step further, the maths shows that there is a supra-universal consciousness.
Aha.
And our whole universe, our whole experience, every single thing that we can see, map, do whatever, is pretty much an expression of this consciousness.
Okay.
So people have often asked me, what is the closest analogy that you can give to what this is? And it's basically a consciousness watching
virtual reality
things. Okay. Now the funny thing is that for the life of me, just right now, I can't remember what the mathematician's name is. But you've got a lot of other mathematicians that are brilliant and have come to the same conclusion, that literally you are seeing this because this doesn't really exist, if you could call it that.
So this is stuff you read in your
spare time. Yes. Okay. So
okay. Right. Sorry. Yeah. I'm laughing with you, not at you.
No. So if we can turn around and we can accept the fact that there is something bigger, okay, and we can look at the energy level, and if we take Briggs's elevator, for example, where the universe is at the top and space foam is down here at the bottom, there is always this ladder or hierarchy of energy structures.
Okay.
So whether you like it or not, there is a higher power than our mental level or our level of consciousness, call it that.
Ah.
Okay? There has to be. It is pure logic.
Cool.
If you then have a look at old yoga philosophy, for example, you have a series of, let's call it meridians and energy lines called nadis. And your chakras are pretty much the grossest forms of these. And they're, let's call it almost like a neural network where all of these things sort of co-join and into spots.
Okay.
But if you have a look at the diagrams and you actually start looking into the thing, they turn around and say that there's about 75,000 of these at different subtler energy levels. So for me, I started to have a look at how things were starting to sync, right, with different situations and how things were starting to come right when I first came into recovery. And I wanted to understand why this was. When I went back and started to look at this, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm opening up my energy channels again.
Okay.
I'm not closed in all the time.
As we do in addiction.
Precisely. So then one of the other things is made a decision, which was very, very powerful for me. And I turned around and said, how can a thought, which in essence a decision is, how can a thought have this kind of impact? Because this is getting quite gross. It's getting very close to the physical, for example. Let's just be quite clear on sort of physicality. So when you have a look at superstring theory, basically what they're saying is that you've got these two strings that vibrate, and that little energy field in the middle is picked up by a Geiger counter as a particle. Okay. Those particles then, and suddenly now you have an atom. And,
okay.
But the reality is that it's just a bunch of or it's just a small energy field with certain properties. Okay. Let's call it that. So if we have a look at how a decision can actually affect something in this particular realm of physicality. Yeah. You take an experiment that they did at the University of Utrecht a little while ago, where what they did was they set up a particle accelerator and a photon gun in a lead-lined room. Yeah. Basically, it was an old communications bunker from the Cold War. Okay. So totally lead-lined. Nothing can get in, nothing can get out. And then 500 miles away, they had the test subject also in a lead-lined room. And what they basically turned on and said is that when you shoot a photon, so you've got your gun here and you're pointing it directly there, you have a set of probabilities that the photon is going to hit there. Yeah. But it's not 100%, because sometimes the photon will go straight out the gun, turn right round and shoot backwards. It happens. What they wanted to do in this particular experiment was to test whether somebody's mind could affect this particular experiment.
So the outcome of it.
Precisely. Okay. So 500 miles away, two lead-lined rooms. And they write down the thing of, let's call it left, right, whatever it is. And they do it. They look at the results and it's exact. It's 100%. Now the thing is that a photon is mappable. It's quantifiable. It is a piece of reality, if you can call it that. In somebody's mind, 500 miles away, over 1,000 clicks away, so literally let's call it like here to Bloemfontein or whatever it is, can absolutely affect what that thing is going to do. Okay? So then now you start thinking about, okay, hang on a second. If you look at Chinese medicine, often what they'll do with acupuncture, or this or that, or whatever it is that they will release energy or whatever it is, they'll balance it through those meridians. So if we have a look at it, and we take that a step further to the yogic philosophy with all of these nadis, you've got blockages, you've got things, you've got all over the place. But when you make a decision to open yourself to this supra-universal energy source and consciousness and allow that to flow through you, suddenly now you're opening up all of those little gates, all the way through all of those energy levels. And suddenly that starts to flow.
Yeah.
That made perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
And I suddenly went, oh, okay, cool. Now I can understand.
I can make that decision.
Yeah, I can make that decision now
because
I can understand, because I was getting quite freaked out because I was doing I was putting some pretty big, what I considered pretty big hurdles in front of the higher powers, turning around and going, hey dude, you need to do this.
Yeah.
And when I started to try and look at the stats on how these unrelated events happened consequentially, but all came together to make this over here, you turn around and you go, the stat on that actually happening is so big that you actually have to turn around and go, okay, fine, got it, thank you, got it. Right? And once I had kind of, so for me, I mean, that's my little model on how I work things.
Awesome.
And that's how I could put a framework together and turn around and go, okay, cool, this is very real. This actually does work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I had that type of thought, if you can call it that way, when I was first year varsity, but I didn't understand it at that stage. Or second year varsity. In psychology, we did developmental psychology. Mm-hmm. So you start with even before conception takes place. Mm-hmm. There's even a theory that says your personality can be influenced by the motivation your parents had for getting together.
I would think that makes...
Yeah, at that stage, right? Yes. That was 30 years ago.
Okay.
It was, yes, exactly 30 years ago. No more, 32 years ago.
Yeah.
It freaked me out. It was just not a possibility because I was closed-minded.
Sure.
But to look at the development of a fetus into a baby, and that X percentage of the babies that are born are normal physically, the possibility of that happening
is so infinitesimal.
Every single one of those is an absolute miracle because it's stuff that can go wrong.
All over the place.
It's just kind of
all over the place.
No, it's really amazing.
Look, when I think of those kind of things, I mean that really sort of blows my socks off. You know, I suppose when I look at all of this, and I turn around and go, okay, cool. And I think I was about 14. No, I think it was 13, 14 when I started really having a look at this particular question. Like, why am I here? What is the point? And the only thing that, and I think I got it about 6 months after I started really looking into it, and it's the only thing that I've been able to acid test in almost every single situation, and it holds true, is to learn. That is the only reason that I can give myself for being alive.
Okay.
Is to learn.
Yeah.
So the reality is that you asked me a little earlier, my particular thing is that every single thing that has happened to me, I mean, I got involved with a whole bunch of things totally randomly. Right? So when I look back, I turn around and go, there was a reason for that. There's an absolute reason for that. There was a reason that I stuffed up. There was a reason that all of this happened. Because, quite frankly, it has brought me to a place where I'm open again.
Yeah.
I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not... And that I'm really, really appreciating at this moment in time. Is that I love to learn. I mean, that's what it's all about.
In the pursuit of knowledge and the pursuit of experience of knowledge.
So whether it was way back in the day, trying to push the envelope on everything that we used to do, it's exactly the same, except that this is positive as opposed to negative, but it was still going out and trying to get those experiences, because at the end of the day, I want to be the best person I can possibly be. And that's my motivation for a lot of what I do.
Cool.
Previously, my persona that I called it was Alley Cat. And the person that I'm hopefully growing into is Elder Great. Right? Which is a very different kind of individual, if you could call it that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, what do you do to practice your spirituality? You mentioned meditation earlier, you mentioned yoga. Do you see exercise as part of that?
My whole thing, and I go through stages and phases, so I can never ever turn on and go, this is what it. Exercise to me, often when I'm on the bike, I'll pop in sort of some really, what I call some badass house, and
165 beats per minute minimum.
That's it. But I particularly like that sort of swing electro.
Okay.
It's tail shaking music. That.
Okay.
But on the bike, once I've got this kind of going in the background, and let's call it white noise going on, I find that very meditative.
Yes.
For the last while, I'm having a real problem when I wake up in the mornings, doing my meditation and stuff. I'm finding every single excuse under the sun.
It's amazing how we find excuses to do the things that we know are good for us.
You know it's good for you.
Yeah.
So, for example, I love doing yoga. I love it, right? But over this last little period, man, I need my cup of coffee first because I'm fast asleep and I really don't feel like doing it. It's a little chilly this morning. I think I should go and have a shower. Yeah, and you think to yourself, hang on a second, come on, boy, just get with the program. But so on that side of things, I'm having a bit of a tussle at the moment.
So a bit of a give and take.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes you're really into it, and then sometimes
I'm not. Also, the other thing is that I think one of the biggest problems that a lot of people have is perfectionism and beating yourself up.
Yep.
And both of those, I find, are incredibly negative. So even though I'm aware that there is this thing and I really should be doing it, I don't push it too hard.
Okay, cool. So you're okay with it?
Yeah, I'm cool.
That's
you know
fantastic,
what I mean, right? The weirdest thing that, well, not the weirdest thing, but what I'm finding for me that is really working over the last little bit is to try and be as empathetic as possible. So, for example, if I'm in the traffic in the morning and a taxi pulls in front of me, instead of turning around and going, whatever.
You fucking asshole.
Okay, let's call a spade, right? Right?
This is my podcast. I can say it if I want.
Fair enough. What I do is, what kind of happened to me a little while ago is I started to look into why do these guys do it? Ask the questions. Ask the question. And I said, wait, hang on a second. In the morning, this guy has an hour to an hour and maybe 15 or 20 minutes in which he's got to make 2 trips.
Yeah.
If he doesn't make 2 trips, his kids don't eat that night.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the reality. Now, suddenly when you look at something like that, you suddenly go, hang on a second, okay, Brie, I'll actually let you in.
Exactly.
Go.
Yeah.
Suddenly,
I'm helping you in this. Go. Yeah.
Yes, and it costs you nothing. Right? I've let go of, the fact that I've actually got to get something.
Yes. I'm on my way to work as well.
Precisely. There's L's important, Right?
I had a situation like that on Friday night. Jaco and I had our siblings for dinner.
Yes.
And I was still busy cooking, and he laid the table. And he took the white cotton napkins out, and he looked at it and said, "These are so badly ironed. Look at them. The labels are ironed not to be inside, it's on the outside." And he went half ballistic.
Yes.
And I kind of, do you realize that the person who ironed those things sits on crates in a house, or if you can call that a house? What does she know about material serviettes?
Yes.
Nothing.
Yes. She just
So
did it.
you know what? I'm very happy with what she's done. It's okay.
Yeah. So
it's that bit of empathy, that
right?
bit
Just
of understanding, of seeing where it comes from. Yeah.
what are my sort of spiritual practices these days? The other thing that I'm really finding that works for me is that whole attitude of gratitude type thing, right? Is that as soon as you are grateful for something, or you can look at something just slightly differently and turn around and go, hang on a second, I'm actually grateful that I've eaten this morning.
Yeah.
I'm in a motor car, which is paid for, okay? And I'm going to go somewhere where I've the opportunity of earning money, which is going to do A, B, and C for me. Instead of turning on and going, oh, there's traffic, I've got to get it.
I need to get, yes, exactly.
So it's tiny little things like that. But on the other side of the coin is spending time in the water, so on the surfing side of things, and not taking it too seriously. Because often the guys are competitive in the water as well. And if I don't do a big move and a this and a that, is it the end of the world? Or is my actual goal to go and enjoy myself?
A friend of mine says that his higher power, his biggest connection with his higher power, is when he's sitting on a surfboard at the back of the waves.
Absolutely.
In that moment, he says that's when he feels so
connected.
Absolutely. There's nothing like it.
No, I totally agree with you.
He goes virtually, I won't say bonkers, but he gets very off balance if he hasn't been in the water for a few days. It's just really weird for him. Things are just, I need to get in the water.
Yeah, I'm
amazing.
Kind of,
I think water is an amazing, what can we call it?
Medium or...
Yeah, the calmness it brings. I've got a little fountain at the back of the house. Not a fountain.
Just running water.
Yeah.
There's little bamboo.
And with the water restrictions, I obviously can't use it. Yeah. And I looked at it and I'm thinking, I can't wait to just switch this thing on again. I love to just have that sound.
Yes.
You will see there's a little bird feeder outside my window.
Oh yes, yeah.
And talk about gratitude. That the birds are actually coming to eat here.
Yes.
Of course, this is my counselling room.
Yes.
I think it's lovely to have a bird arriving.
Oh yes.
And you look out, what is that? And the other day, yesterday morning, I pushed it into deep. And I need to realign it because now too low, you can't see what bird is eating the bird feeder. So I need to lift it up. But I get the gratitude thing. Even in the mornings when I walk my cat, to listen to the birds.
Please tell me you just said I walk my cat.
I walk my cat.
Okay, cool. No, I'm okay.
the one you met outside.
Yes.
But this was amazing. This was really, really lovely.
Cool.
It was you. You gave me so much to think about. Fantastic. I'm definitely not going to research what you said, but what I get from this chat, what I'll never forget, is you can take science and make a higher power.
Of course, but it's there.
But so many scientists don't see it.
Look, the reality is that scientists are still just humans, okay? And most people don't like to be challenged.
Yeah.
They like their comfort zones. Whereas I've always wanted to challenge things, and I've always been encouraged to challenge.
So the core principle of question
is
that has stood you in. It took you to some very, very fucked up
dark
places, but it's brought you full circle up to an amazing place in your life again.
Absolutely.
Because that's something you said the other night as well, is that right here, right now, you are possibly you feel as if you're in the best place you've ever been in your life.
Absolutely. There's no questions about that. There's no question about that. We're not talking about like tiny percentage differences here. We are talking about massive.
Yeah. Chalk and cheese.
Chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
Put it this way.
Amazing.
Now, a crumb of cheese to the cliffs of Dover kind of story. You know what I mean? I mean, it's real. I mean, it's fundamentally
That's
different.
amazing.
Right?
That is such a nice way to end this. But thank you so much. This was fascinating. I loved it. Brilliant. And I'll let you know when we go live on this.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, well, put it this way. If you ever want to actually start to hear about some of the other things that I think about.
Ooh.
This pretty much what we hit this evening.
We have
very,
scratched,
yeah,
not
this
even
is very,
scratched the surface.
No, this is very surface level.
I think I'm afraid to go there.
Wow.
No, not as in afraid, as in fear, as in what way am I going to be challenged? that type of fear.
Put it this way, what I always like looking at is how the coaching and how mental perceptions play the biggest and most important parts of your life, and how to actually practically go about changing it, because it's so. What people need to realize is that they are responsible for every single decision that they make in their life, and they can change that, how you've perceived something, instantaneously. And I think that particular process is one of the most empowering processes.
Yeah.
Totally
Excellent. Agree. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Freddie. Have a lovely, lovely evening, mate.
I'm going to do that thing. This was really quite a rush for me. I found Alaister very easy to talk to and enjoyed diving into his multi-layered life and getting to know him a bit better. I wish him all of the best on his exciting new business venture. If you want to know more about what I do, please feel free to connect with me on my website, which is www.freddy.org.za, or find me on Facebook at www.facebook.com/freddy.org.za, or on Twitter at @RensburgFreddy. Remember that Freddy is always spelled with an IE at the end. I want to thank you for listening. Be safe. Bye.